She told me she was planning to meet her lover tonight. It all started with a light knock on the bathroom door. The voice on the other side was familiar, calm but uncertain. "Hi, Liam. Can I ask you something? Just don't tell me you promise not to freak out." Liam, toothbrush in hand and towel over his shoulder, didn't think much of it. The sun was shining through the frosted glass, and everything seemed perfectly normal until she opened her mouth again. "But I'm telling you, don't panic." Her words made him sit down and listen. He stopped, toothpaste on his lips. Was this how it was in the movies, right before something terrible happened? "What's going on?" he added, stepping into the hallway. Vanessa stood in her pale robe, staring at the floor as if it could reveal some important information. She seemed calm, too calm. "I want us to try something new, together," she said to him. He blinked, confused. "Like go to a different restaurant?" Her eyes were fixed on his, unwavering and serious. "No. Something more personal, more intimate." He stood there stunned, not knowing how to react, how to explain the difference in her mood. "Are you scaring me?" he asked in a quiet voice. "I believe it's time to open up our marriage," she said. Liam's heart skipped a beat for a moment. Those words were like a cold shower, and his mind spun. "Are you cheating on me?" he blurted out before he could stop himself. "No," Vanessa replied, as if she hadn't hesitated for a second, maybe even too quickly. "It's not that. I'm just wondering what it's like to be with other people." The words hung in the air, filled with discord. She didn't seem to fully understand the seriousness of her proposal. "It's not just sex," Vanessa replied in a soft but firm voice. "It's about connection, about exploration. You've been married for a long time, Liam. It's not that I don't love you, I do. But I want to feel alive again." Her words hit him harder than she thought they would. Liam's world was a world of schedules. Dog walks, lazy Sundays, modest dinners. He knew that these little things, this consistency, were what love was, not some grand emotional outbursts. "You're not going to sit and watch me with someone else?" he asked, his voice tense. "No," Vanessa replied. "I want us to study together. Some couples do that. It could strengthen what we have." Her calmness hurt him. His son didn't understand her logic. He tried to laugh, but it sounded forced. "Strengthen? Are you listening to yourself?" Vanessa crossed her arms. "You're acting on instinct. You don't believe in this." Liam walked toward the kitchen, craving something solid, something substantial. "This isn't routine," he reminded himself. "Routine is what they show on TV, not this." "Maybe I'm emotionally cheating," Vanessa said, her voice sharp. "I've lived in this house like a ghost for years." Liam didn't answer. How could he? Vanessa was fast asleep, and Liam couldn't sleep, tormented by the thought that everything they had been through together might have been a lie. All those moments together, all those quiet dinners, had it all been a lie? In the days that followed, Vanessa's behavior began to change. At first, she started going to the gym more often, bought new clothes, and always kept her phone face down, as if she were hiding something. He wasn't jealous. He was beginning to realize that he just wanted to know what was wrong with her, wanted to hear her story. There was something strange about her. On the other hand, it was Wednesday. A message rang on her phone. "The hotel is booked for Friday. Can't wait to try it." He didn't feel anger, just a cold emptiness. He took a screenshot and sent it to himself in an email with numb fingers. He put the phone back where she had left it without looking at it. Friday came. He hadn't heard the sound of her heels as she walked out the door in years. Vanessa never left the house dressed like that anymore. Liam didn't stop her. He just said, "Don't come back." But she did. That night, everything started to fall apart. She walked into the room humming, as if she hadn't woken up. The smell of someone else's perfume still lingered in her car, but she acted as if it were a normal Wednesday evening. "Hi, you're not asleep yet?" she said, throwing her bag on the table. Liam sat in the dark, his arms crossed, staring at her as if he could see into her soul. "I was thinking," she said, "maybe we could go to the coast. Remember that little place in Menino? It would be nice to get away from everything for a couple of days." She sounded so casual, so normal. But Liam knew better now. He knew that the woman standing in front of him was not the woman he had spent his whole life with. Something had changed. He didn't answer. He looked at her, then took a long sip of whiskey. Then he said quietly, "I hope you had a good evening." Vanessa frowned. "What do you mean?" Liam stood up, walked over to the table, and placed his phone in front of her as if it were the absolute truth. "Come here," he said. "Watch this video." In the video, she was laughing with two men, her eyes sparkling, her voice trembling with joy. He saw the look on her face when she did it, the disbelief turning to fear. "I didn't know it was on the cloud," she whispered, almost plaintively. Liam bit his lip to keep from screaming. "But you knew." She was on the verge of tears, but when he saw her face, he didn't see guilt. He saw panic. She moved closer to him, and he jumped back, shaking his head. "Don't lie to me." "I didn't know how to tell you," she said, choking. He was in the dark kitchen, and everything that had been building up inside him came pouring out. His eyes met hers and didn't let go. Liam didn't yell, he didn't scream. Then he turned it around to stick it in her face and said, "Maybe you shouldn't have been so memorable to strangers that night." She cried for hours outside their bedroom door, but Liam never opened it. Not once. He sat on the bed in the guest room and stared at their wedding photo. Now he felt no pain, only disbelief. But this was not followed by depression, but transformation. The next morning, Liam filed for divorce, sending his lawyer a letter with the video attached and a single line. "This is all we need." But his revenge would not be expressed in court documents. It had to suffocate, sting, and haunt her. So Liam got to work. He stopped responding to her, stopped arguing with her, but every time she spoke, he just nodded. When she cried, he handed her tissues. He gave the impression that he was quietly falling apart, because nothing scares a guilty person more than silence where chaos should reign. He took her off his bank account, sold their share of the vacation home, and closed all their joint credit cards. Then he started writing even more. Only now it wasn't about her, but about himself. He cooked the meals she loved, limped to the places they had planned to go together, and described it all in an anonymous online account under the username HealedHusband89. The posts were quite serious, not bitter or angry, but sincere and honest, and for some reason went viral. People empathized with him. Hundreds of other devoted followers shared similar stories, and his subscriber count skyrocketed. He responded to everyone with comforting words because he had found meaning in his suffering. And, well, Vanessa obviously found the page. When she saw it, she exploded. One night he was holding his phone and she was leaning over him, pointing at the screen, a sneer in her eyes. She knew his name, his voice, his face, but he had never called her by name. "You're turning me into a monster," she whispered, trembling. "No," he replied calmly. "You painted yourself. I just held up a mirror." Then came the whispers. Friends, neighbors, colleagues. "Did you hear about Vanessa? I don't know, she was such a 23 years married. Her reputation, her social circle, everything fell apart, as if a dress had torn at the seams. But the real revenge was yet to come. Vanessa's once promising career began to unravel. She had finally made it to vice president of marketing, leading seminars on branding, authenticity, and loyalty. Then Liam anonymously reported this to her company's ethics council, sending a link to the video and a few words. "Does this align with the values you promote to your clients?" 2 days later, she was suspended from work. A few days later, she was fired. She came home with smeared mascara on her face and a stunned expression. "They fired me," she replied, gasping for breath. Liam took a sip of his tea. "Actions have consequences." She laughed bitterly. "You really believe that makes you honest?" "No," he replied, looking down at her. "It makes me equal." "I already apologized," she said, trembling. "You filmed it. Smile. Press play. You didn't apologize. You got caught." She sank to the ground and cried, "You're killing me." Liam walked past her without saying a word. The final stage came 3 months later. Vanessa was broke, jobless, friendless, and her reputation was ruined. One night she called him in tears. "Liam, I need help. I can't pay my rent. I'm scared." There was a long pause, and finally he said, "I'll help you." She gasped with relief. "Really?" "Of course," he replied. "I'll send you the first check in the mail after you add your truth to the hip-hop history books," he wrote. She was confused. "What?" "Video," he said, keeping his cool. "Turn on your camera. No editing, no excuses. I want to hear the truth about what you did, why you did it, how you felt. Every word." She fell silent, whispering barely audibly. "That's humiliating." I stared at the iPhone screen, which I had zoomed in on to see my marriage fall apart. He hung up. 2 days later, a document arrived in his email. Vanessa lifted her tired head and confessed that we were doing nothing but expressing regret. He never attached it, never published it. He just put it in a folder called Closed. Then he sent the check. That fall, Liam slept soundly again, not dreamily, not completely, and freed himself from the bitterness that had held him captive. The house was quiet, not ghostly, not scarred by arguments, not littered with unread text messages or her scent lingering in the air. Just quiet. And sometimes quiet is a gift. He had changed, too. He gave up sugar, started running again, and let his beard grow out. She insisted he was looking too wild. But now he liked the wildness. He was getting back things he hadn't even realized he'd lost. He cooked his own meals and cleaned up after himself, took books he'd forgotten about off the shelves. He also went to a therapist, not to fix what she'd broken, but to understand why he hadn't noticed it for so long. But just when life seemed to be getting back on track, one morning his neighbor Daniel approached him at the mailbox. "Liam," he said, sounding wary, "can I tell you something? You should have told me this earlier." Liam raised an eyebrow. "Yeah?" Daniel paused, then continued. "Last year, I saw someone. It was a dark car. In the afternoons, he would pick up Vanessa after school. At first, I thought he was a staff member. But then he stared at her. He wasn't a staff member." Liam felt his stomach clench, not because he was shocked, but because it was even darker than he could have imagined. "Thanks, buddy," he replied quietly. But inside, his anger flared up again. Swingers parties, videos, public humiliation. It wasn't about when or how it started. It was about the fact that this was the culmination of a story she had been secretly writing for months, maybe even longer. She hadn't fallen in love. She had chosen. That night, he looked into the cloud storage he had been too afraid to open. It came flooding back. Photos, messages, screenshots, selfies, and chats from men he had never met. The posts were from a year or more ago and showed photos of hotel rooms, drinks, captions like, "He knows how to make me feel alive again," or "Hope Liam doesn't ask any questions tonight." Then he found a folder with her initials on it. It was a printed diary she had kept about him. Everything's fine, one of them said. Liam's still asleep. When I look into his eyes, I feel him. He doesn't see me. I need to live something primitive but not restrained, something depraved with or without him. I become everything I never was. And then, one of them just knocked him out. He would have died if he knew what we did last night. I kissed him on the forehead and told him I loved him. That's the real crime. Liam hadn't slept all night. He didn't cry. No, he printed everything out, every line, every photo, every timestamp, and now it was all in a plain manila envelope. The next week, he sent it to her father. Vanessa was standing at his door, looking like she'd just been in a fight and had a hangover, and she had an envelope. "How could you?" she hissed. "Me? You destroyed everything I had." She was crying. "I believed you wanted it to stay a secret," Liam replied coldly. "I'm not going to protect you from the consequences of your behavior anymore." She shook her head furiously. "You're a monster." "No, Vanessa, you are. I just turned on the light." She staggered backward. "My father won't talk to me. He disowned me." Liam shrugged. "Well, I guess your secrets weren't as well kept as you thought." Vanessa leaned so close to him she could touch his lips, her eyes glowing with raging fury. "So you think that makes you better than me?" "It gives me freedom," Liam replied. "No." She believed it couldn't get any worse, but she was wrong. Liam wasn't just getting over it, he was living it. He had met a new girl, not on a dating app and not out of desperation. Her name was Elise. She was a traveling nurse and was working in the area temporarily. They first met at a bookstore, where she literally bumped into him. She loved coffee and old poetry, hated small talk, and loved deep conversations. When she asked, he told her a little about his divorce, and she didn't pity him, she just listened. His first kiss was not like the ones before. It wasn't comfort or routine. It wasn't medicine, but it was a discovery, and it was the beginning. He never told Vanessa, but she found out, of course. One night, she showed up with wide eyes and a high-pitched voice. "So you're saying you're going to replace me? As if I meant nothing to you?" Liam stood calmly at the door. "No. You left me a long time ago. I'm just creating something out of—" He paused. "Out of nothing. Out of ashes." Her voice trembled. "Do you love her?" He smiled. "Not yet. But she knows the value of love, and that's what matters. She doesn't treat it like currency to be spent on strangers." Vanessa cried. He closed the door, but Vanessa wasn't going to give up. Despite the silence, the videos, the destruction of her career, the breakdown of her family, she couldn't give up on Liam, not because he was her love, but because she couldn't accept losing control. It started innocently enough. Questions about the dog they once had together, then guilt trips, then veiled threats. "You'll regret the day you made me your enemy." He pretended not to know anything until she went too far. On Thursday morning, Liam woke up to the sound of his phone ringing. His personal photos, fragments of his healing that he had sent anonymously, had been leaked. His real name, personal text messages, comments about his broken heart were now public knowledge. His inbox exploded. His boss called. "Are you okay? Someone's making sure it spreads quickly." It was her. She was using his quiet healing as a weapon. That evening, she showed up, smug. "You think I'm just going to swallow this?" she sneered. "You leaked my recovery videos and you're following me around. I made you famous. Congratulations." He stared at her. "You don't need help, Vanessa. You need psychiatric help." "You left me with nothing. You ruined everything," she replied. Liam took a step forward. "I've saved all your emails, all your loud statements," he said, keeping his voice calm. "I want a restraining order." Her smile faded. "I already have," Liam said. "The next time you come here, you'll leave in handcuffs." She never came back, at least not in physical form. But her online smear campaign continued. Fake reviews, vicious posts, lies on neighborhood forums. The final blow to hurt him, by any means necessary. Liam withdrew into himself. Nothing more. Just peace. He filed a small lawsuit for defamation and malicious prosecution. His lawyer was ruthless. They had screenshots, timestamps, IP addresses. Her digital footprints were everywhere. It was over. Truly over. 3 months later, the courtroom was quiet and cold. Vanessa sat at the table with Liam, her shoulders tense, her makeup unable to hide the bags under her eyes. She looked smaller, not in a way that she had lost weight, but in a way that she had lost all of her spark, like a person who had lost their fire. The judge began to read the verdict. Defamation and harassment. Guilty. She had to pay a 5-figure sum in compensation and print a public retraction. When it was over, she didn't say a word, just stared at the floor. Liam walked past her without looking back. No victory, just the end. When he returned, he entered the house where they had lived together. He no longer smelled like her. She hadn't painted the walls. That was true. He had filled all the holes with new paintings, new laughter, a new world. Elise was standing barefoot in the kitchen, holding 2 mugs. He took one and smiled. "Everything's ready." "Are you okay?" she asked. "Better than okay," he said, and he meant it. For the first time in what seemed like forever, he was no longer haunted by her ghost. He no longer needed answers. Betrayal would not define him, not what he had done when it happened. 2 weeks passed, and a letter arrived. It wasn't from Vanessa, but from her first love, a handsome man named Garrett. He wrote as simply as he could. "She cheated on me just like that many years ago." I left quietly, but I read your series of books and knew she was just like that. She found someone better. I'm sorry, brother. She didn't deserve either of us. Liam folded the letter neatly and smiled. Not wistfully, but thoughtfully. He felt understood. Now it wasn't about revenge. It was about rebirth. The past wasn't gone. It just didn't control him anymore. Vanessa had fallen silent because she was outdated, not because she was being punished. Liam kept moving forward, toward the world, toward his goal, and toward someone who wouldn't take love and throw it away.